Whispers turned to warnings, and now, the mask Bernard wore was closer than ever to falling off. Welcome to the last episode of this story. Let's dive in. Bernard sat at the far end of his room, eyes fixed on the paused video clip. The scene kept replaying in his head, Precious handing over the envelope with the chilling words echoing in the background. Make sure she leaves. I don't care how. Ibuka stood beside him, arms folded. That's not just gossip, bro. That's an actual threat. Bernard leaned back slowly. They are targeting Sandra. But why? What has she done to deserve this? Ibuka shrugged. She's a threat to their plan. Maybe she's the only one you truly see. Bernard's jaw clenched. Then they don't know who they are playing with. Meanwhile, Chief Donald called Bernard for a private conversation in his study. The air between them was heavy. I know you've been moving quietly, the chief began. Bernard raised an eyebrow. You've been watching me? Chief Donald didn't deny it. There are eyes in this house you don't see, Bernard. You've chosen a dangerous path. Bernard sat up. You mean going undercover? Or falling in love with someone you didn't choose? Silence. Then, Chief Donald said slowly, the real threat isn't the girls, son. It's the man pulling the strings. Raymond. Donald nodded gravely. I trusted him once. Now, I'm not so sure. Bernard leaned in. Then we expose him. Together. Chief Donald looked away. Some secrets, if they come out, they'll destroy more than you think. Back at the company, Ella and Precious were unaware that Bernard had regained full access to the surveillance room. With Ibuka's help, he tracked down every interaction they had in the last 2 weeks. One video stood out. Ella in the company lobby, whispering to Raymond. You promised me Bernard if I did what you asked. Raymond smirked. Be patient, Ella. Once Sandra is gone, he'll have no choice. Bernard paused the footage. His heart dropped. It wasn't just about him anymore. It was a game of control, of power. Amanda, despite being frightened, wasn't sitting still. She decided to reach out to Sandra. At a quiet cafe, she handed Sandra a flash drive. This has everything I found, Amanda said. Bernard trusts you. I think you need to see this. Sandra looked confused. But, why me? Amanda's eyes softened. Because despite everything, you've remained real. I used to envy that. Now I respect it. Sandra blinked. Thank you. Amanda hesitated, then added, just, be careful. Raymond doesn't play fair. Elsewhere, Raymond stood under a dim light in a hidden corner of a car park, speaking to a shadowy figure. They are closing in. The figure stepped forward. His face was partially hidden by a cap. Raymond continued, I need you to handle Sandra. The man nodded silently and walked away. Raymond lit a cigarette and whispered, let's see how well she plays now. Late that night, Sandra returned home, only to find her front door slightly open. She froze. Slowly, she stepped inside, her phone ready in her trembling hand. Sandra, a deep voice said from the darkness. She turned sharply. There, standing in her living room, was a man she didn't know, his face half lit, ice cold. He stepped closer. You should have stayed quiet. She opened her mouth to scream, but he lunged. Sandra's heart raced. The man standing in her living room was no stranger. He was the same man she had seen with Raymond in the video. His cold eyes were filled with intent, and he wasn't here for a casual chat. You should have stayed quiet, he repeated, his voice low and menacing. Sandra's pulse quickened, but she didn't show fear. Instead, she reached for the phone in her pocket, fingers trembling. If she could just call Bernard. But the man's eyes flickered to her hand, and he took a step forward. Don't even think about it. Sandra's mind raced. She needed to buy time. Who are you? His lips curled into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I work for someone who doesn't like people poking their nose into things. And you, Sandra, are a problem. The man moved swiftly, blocking the door, but Sandra's survival instincts kicked in. She glanced around the room, desperate. A lamp. A vase. Anything. With a surge of adrenaline, she grabbed the heavy vase from the table and swung it at his head. He staggered back, momentarily dazed. Without wasting a second, Sandra dashed for the door, her hand reaching for the handle. She yanked it open, but before she could escape, the man grabbed her by the arm, pulling her back inside. No! Sandra screamed, her body fighting against his hold. But just as it seemed like all was lost, the door crashed open. Let her go. Bernard stormed into the room, his voice filled with raw power. He shoved the man away from Sandra and held him back, his grip firm. You've crossed the wrong line now, Bernard said through gritted teeth. The man struggled under Bernard's hold, but it was clear he wasn't going down without a fight. Bernard wasn't alone, Ibuka had followed him in, backing him up. You shouldn't have interfered, the man spat, narrowing his eyes. This isn't over. Bernard twisted his arm, forcing him to his knees. Who are you working for? The man smirked, even with his arm twisted painfully behind his back. You already know? The truth is always just beneath the surface. Bernard looked at Ibuka, his mind spinning. Raymond. The man chuckled darkly. You're smarter than you look. But it's too late now. The damage is already done. Sandra, still shaken, walked to Bernard's side. What's he talking about? Raymond has been playing us all, Bernard said quietly. But we're not done yet. The man's smile faded as Bernard stepped back. He motioned for Ibuka to keep watch while he grabbed the man's phone and sent a message to Raymond, pretending to be one of his associates. It's time. Meet me at the usual place. As Bernard and Sandra waited in the dimly lit room, they could feel the tension mounting. The plan was simple: lure Raymond into a meeting where they could confront him face to face. But what they didn't expect was that Raymond was always 2 steps ahead. As they stood in silence, waiting for the man to arrive, Bernard's phone buzzed. It was a text from the mysterious figure. You've made a grave mistake. Suddenly, the door burst open. Raymond entered, flanked by several of his men, all of them wearing cold, hard expressions. Nice try, Bernard, Raymond said with a smirk. But you didn't think I'd let you take me down so easily, did you? Sandra stepped forward, her face hard. You've been playing with people's lives, Raymond. But it ends tonight. Raymond's smile widened. You think you've won? There's always a bigger game, my dear. And you're just pawns in mine. Just when it seemed like Raymond would have the upper hand, the sound of a car screeched outside, followed by the slamming of a door. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Shut it down, a familiar voice commanded. It was Chief Donald. Sandra and Bernard turned to look as Chief Donald walked into the room, his presence powerful and intimidating. But there was no warmth in his eyes. Father, Bernard began, his voice faltering with shock. I had to make sure this ended, Chief Donald said coldly. Raymond was playing a game of his own. But I was playing a bigger one. Raymond's eyes widened in disbelief. You knew? Chief Donald didn't answer directly. Instead, he pulled a piece of paper from his jacket and threw it onto the table. It was a legal document. A contract that tied Raymond to illegal activities, money laundering, threats, and bribery. You've been exposed, Raymond. And now it's time to face the consequences. Raymond's face twisted in fury. You've betrayed me, Donald. Chief Donald's expression didn't waver. You were never to be trusted. You crossed the line when you tried to drag my son into your web of lies. As Raymond's men were detained, Bernard looked at his father, still trying to process everything. I didn't know, Bernard said quietly. I thought I could trust you. Chief Donald sighed, his face softening for the first time in days. I never wanted you to get involved in this, Bernard. But you had to see the truth. The real game is always played by those you trust the most. Bernard turned to Sandra, his heart heavy with mixed emotions. This isn't over, is it? No, Sandra said, her voice firm. But it's a step forward. We'll make sure the truth comes out. As they left the room together, the doors closed behind them, leaving a quiet, unsettling silence. But deep in the shadows, Raymond's shadowy figure remained, watching, waiting for the next move. The morning sun crept through the curtains of the mansion, casting long shadows across the room. Bernard sat at the kitchen table, his mind racing with questions. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, something he hadn't yet uncovered. Sandra sat beside him, noticing the distant look in his eyes. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, her voice soft. "I feel like there's more to this whole mess," Bernard confessed, running a hand through his hair. "Raymond may be out of the picture, but someone else is pulling the strings. I just don't know who yet." Sandra leaned in closer, her fingers brushing his. "We'll figure it out. Together." But as the words left her lips, a sudden knock at the door shattered the calm. Bernard looked at Sandra, both of them knowing that whoever was at the door would change everything once again. The door swung open, and standing on the threshold was a man neither Bernard nor Sandra had ever seen before. His dark suit contrasted with his cold, calculating demeanor. He wasn't a stranger to trouble, Bernard could tell that much with one look. "I need to speak with Bernard Donald," the man said, his voice clipped and businesslike. Bernard stepped forward. "I'm Bernard. Who are you?" The man's gaze lingered for a moment, sizing him up. "I work with people who've been affected by your father's business dealings." Sandra stepped in front of Bernard instinctively. "What do you want?" The man ignored her, his eyes still on Bernard. "I've been sent with a message. Your father has made more enemies than he's realized. You're not the only one with something to lose." Bernard's eyes narrowed. "Who sent you?" "Someone who prefers to remain in the shadows," the man replied. "But it's only a matter of time before the truth comes to light. The game is far from over." He turned and walked away, leaving Bernard and Sandra stunned in the doorway. Bernard couldn't shake the unease that gnawed at him. Who was this man? What did he mean by "the game is far from over"? Later that afternoon, Bernard and Sandra decided to take matters into their own hands. They went to Chief Donald's office, hoping to get answers. They needed to know if there were other people involved in Raymond's schemes, people that could be even more dangerous than Raymond himself. Chief Donald sat behind his desk, looking exhausted. His usual confident demeanor was gone, replaced by something more vulnerable. "Father, we need to know what's going on," Bernard said firmly. "There are people out there, dangerous people. You've been hiding something from me, and I need to know what." Chief Donald hesitated, then set down the papers he'd been looking at. "There's more, son. Much more. But I couldn't tell you because you weren't ready." Sandra's eyes widened. "What do you mean? What's been happening?" Chief Donald sighed deeply, rubbing his forehead. "You're right, Bernard. This isn't over. There's an entire network of people who've been after the family for years, trying to take control of what we've built. Raymond was just a pawn in their game." Chief Donald leaned forward, his voice lowering. "You've been caught in the middle of something bigger than you know. This isn't just about money. It's about power, power that goes back decades." Bernard looked at his father, struggling to absorb the weight of the words. "What do you mean?" "There's a family secret," Chief Donald began slowly, choosing his words carefully. "One that's been hidden for years. It was a decision made long before you were born. People have been after that secret ever since." Sandra's heart pounded in her chest. "What secret?" Chief Donald's eyes flickered with something darker. "Your mother was involved in something that none of us could control. It's been buried, hidden in plain sight. But there are people who know, and they won't stop until they find it." Bernard was speechless. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because it was safer that way," Chief Donald replied. "I've done everything I can to protect you and this family. But it's time you knew the truth. The game isn't just about wealth, it's about power. And it's been going on for generations." As the conversation hung heavy in the air, Bernard's mind raced. What was this secret? And why hadn't his father told him sooner? Before he could ask any more questions, the door to the office opened, and a new figure entered, one that took both Bernard and Sandra by surprise. It was Raymond. But he didn't look like the same man who had tried to manipulate them earlier. His eyes were filled with regret and fear. "I came here to warn you," Raymond said, his voice shaky. "I've made a huge mistake. I've been working with the wrong people, dangerous people. They are coming for you all. They won't stop until they have everything. They've been watching you. Watching your family." Bernard stood up. "Why are you telling me this now?" Raymond's voice was barely above a whisper. "Because I don't want to die. I don't want them to win." Sandra stepped closer to Bernard, her expression filled with disbelief. "What does this all mean, Raymond?" Raymond swallowed hard. "You're in more danger than you realize. But it's not just your father's legacy that's at stake. It's your life. They want you, Bernard. Not just the money. They want something more." Bernard's eyes darted between Raymond and his father, the pieces of the puzzle clicking together in his mind. "So, this has been a trap all along," Bernard said quietly. "You've been using me, Raymond. And now you're telling me the truth." Raymond looked down, guilt written all over his face. "I never wanted to get this deep. I never imagined it would go this far. Who else is involved?" Bernard demanded, his voice steady despite the chaos inside him. Raymond looked at the floor, his hands trembling. "I can't tell you. If I do, they'll kill me. But I can give you one warning, they are closer than you think." Just then, a loud bang echoed from outside the office, followed by the sound of approaching footsteps. "We don't have much time," Raymond said, panic creeping into his voice. "They are here." The door slammed open, and armed men poured into the room. The final battle for the truth had begun. Bernard and Sandra were trapped, caught between two worlds, one of power, and the other of survival. As the gunman closed in, Bernard made a decision. He wasn't going to let this family crumble. Not without a fight. But in that moment, as the world seemed to close in on them, one thing became clear: the real battle had only just begun. Bullets shattered glass as Bernard pushed Sandra and Chief Donald to the ground. Raymond dug behind a pillar, shielding himself from the spray of chaos. The armed men flooded in with brutal precision, faces masked, voices sharp. "Get down." Ibuka, hearing the commotion from outside, burst in seconds later with a pistol of his own. He shot one of the intruders in the leg and dragged Bernard and Sandra into the hallway. Chief Donald groaned from the floor, blood staining his shirt. One of the bullets had grazed his side. "We need backup," Bernard shouted, dragging his father. Raymond, caught in hesitation, stared at the masked men, then at Bernard, then fled. "Coward." Ibuka led them through a hidden passage at the back of the estate, an old maintenance route Bernard never knew existed. Sandra held tightly to Bernard, still shaking from the explosion of violence. They exited through a rear gate and slipped into an SUV Ibuka had left running. "Where's Raymond?" Sandra asked, panting. Bernard clenched his jaw. "Gone. Like a rat." But deep down, something twisted in his gut. Raymond hadn't just run to save himself. He was running to them. Elsewhere, in a dark penthouse overlooking Abuja, Raymond stepped into a private room. Inside sat three people, figures he once called allies. Now they were puppeteers, and he was a tattered string in their hands. "You failed," the woman at the table said, her lips painted crimson. "You had one job. Eliminate the heir." Raymond dropped to his knees. "They outsmarted us." Bernard's security was tighter than expected. "But I know something he doesn't." The man beside her raised an eyebrow. "Go on." Raymond smiled slowly. "Chief Donald is dying. And Bernard doesn't know the full secret about his mother." That got their attention. Safe in a small apartment owned by Ibuka, Bernard turned to his wounded father. "I've protected you. Risked my life. Watch people lie, betray, nearly kill Sandra. And now, I want the truth. What secret have you been hiding about Mom? Chief Donald coughed, wincing in pain. His voice came out hoarse. Your mother was not who she claimed to be. Sandra sat beside Bernard, eyes wide. Chief Donald continued. She was a spy. Sent by those same power brokers to infiltrate our family years ago. But she fell in love with me. And when she got pregnant with you, they demanded she abort the child. Bernard blinked. They wanted you to kill me. Yes, his father whispered. She refused. And for that, they took her from me. Bernard was silent. Rage boiled in his chest. All his life, he'd believed his mother died in an accident. Now he knew she was silenced. They are still out there, Bernard said. Still pulling strings. Ibuka nodded. And now they've made it personal. Sandra reached for Bernard's hand. So what do we do now? Bernard looked at her, then at Ibuka. We expose them. We burn everything they've built, one secret at a time. Just as they made plans, a letter arrived under the apartment door. No stamp. No name. Just 2 words written in red. We are watching. Bernard looked up, his fist tightening. Let them watch. 2 weeks later. Rain poured heavily as Chief Donald's casket was lowered into the red Abuja soil. Only a handful of people stood under black umbrellas. The man who once filled halls with his presence was now being laid to rest quietly, almost like a secret being buried. Bernard didn't shed a tear. Not because he wasn't broken inside, but because he had to be strong for what was coming. He wore all black, eyes shielded behind dark sunglasses. Sandra stood beside him, a hand in his. From a black sedan parked at a distance, Raymond watched. He smirked. Time to take everything from him. That night, at an upscale club in Metoma, Raymond sat with Ella, dressed in a sparkly red gown, sipping expensive wine. I told you he would lose everything, she said with a cruel smile. Raymond raised his glass. And now? It's our time. She leaned in. And the documents. You're sure Bernard has no idea? I switched them myself the night of the break-in, Raymond whispered. The entire company, all assets, now belong to us. Ella laughed. Poetic. The security guard he mocked now owns him. In a dusty old chest his father once kept locked, Bernard discovered something strange, a photograph. Not of his father. Not of his mother. But of Amanda, sitting beside Raymond, years ago. His fingers trembled as he turned it over. On the back was scribbled. Keep your enemies in your house. He quickly turned to Ibuka. They've all been working together, for years. Amanda, Raymond, Ella, even Precious. Ibuka's face went pale. So the accident with your mother? Bernard nodded slowly. Planned. Just like the company takeover. Suddenly, a phone rang. An unknown number. Bernard picked it up. Hello. A female voice replied. You think the truth is buried with your father? Think again. Come to where your mother died. Come alone. The call cut. That night, Bernard drove to the cliffside highway where his mother's car had once crashed. But as he arrived, he found a woman standing in the darkness. Alive. Breathing. A bit older, but undeniably her. Mom. She nodded, tears in her eyes. I faked my death. Bernard's legs buckled. She ran to catch him. I did it to protect you. Raymond had threatened your life. Your father wanted to fight, but I knew they'd kill you first. So I disappeared. I watched you grow from a distance. Bernard, eyes wide, whispered, why now? She wiped her eyes. Because it's time to end the game. You have the power. The truth. And most importantly, the right heart. The next day, Abuja buzzed with chaos. Breaking news, massive corruption scandal erupts as Raymond Okeke, former interim CEO of Donald Group, is arrested for conspiracy, forgery, and attempted murder. Police also arrested Ella, Precious, and Amanda, all of whom had accepted illegal bribes and conspired in the death of Bernard's mother. Bernard didn't speak to the press. But the world watched as he walked into his father's company, not as a security guard, not as a grieving son, but as Dr. Bernard Donald, the new chairman. Sandra walked beside him. Graceful. Radiant. Their wedding came weeks later. Modest, filled with laughter, not fame. And for the first time in a long time, peace returned. As Bernard stood at his father's grave weeks later, he whispered to the wind. In a world full of masks, real faces shine slowly. I wore one, so did they. But truth always has a way of revealing itself. He looked to the sky, then down at his wife, Sandra, playing with children from the orphanage they now supported. And with a deep breath, he turned to the viewers, to us, to you. Moral lesson. Don't judge by appearances, kindness reveals more than status ever will. Not everyone around you is genuine. Some smile while holding daggers. Real love grows in truth and character, not in wealth or titles. No secret stays hidden forever, truth always finds the light. And finally, never underestimate a humble heart. It may one day wear the crown. Thank you for watching till the end. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to this channel for more interesting videos like this.